Marriage between first and second cousins are considered consanguineous in many parts of the world. However, the majority of Americans view marriage between cousins as either a humorous joke or a socially unacceptable practice. It is against the law in several states to marry someone who is your first cousin. The potential for genetic issue is stated to be the motivation behind the reservations. However, over 10% of all marriages around the world are between first or second cousins. It may come as a joke in American culture for cousins to get married, but the irony of this is Middle Eastern countries is the bigger joke. I was once there in that spot judging others, and now I have improved. I've expanded my knowledge regarding this, and I have learned along the way. Funny story. My cousins laughed at me when I refused to marry a cousin, alongside my parents' look of disapproval. However, my American friends laughed at me when I said they marry cousins in my country. I would never marry a cousin. Like, I cannot make a joke of a culture that has practiced this for all their life. Cousin marriage is internationally framed upon, but surprisingly, is approved by many cultures around the world, especially most Muslim cultures. Studies suggest as long as there is a blood test done, as long as there are blood tests done and don't have any disease, then it is permissible for first cousins to get married. Cousin marriage is considered a hypocrisy in American culture due to its genetic toll, children's survival rate, yet it has been practiced in their own country and is still being practiced in Middle Eastern cultures. Some people struggle with the idea of cousin marriage and is a thing, and they sit there and judge those who don't have enough education to know what is right and wrong. So perhaps this maybe will open up your mind to it and see something different when looking at married couples that are cousins. Marriage, due to its toll of genetic mutation, but paradoxically, in some societies, marrying a related spouse is linked to having more surviving children. Research suggests the genetic risks that are being discussed are connected by a phenomenon known as unmasking. According to Dr. Dyer, British researchers conducted a systematic analysis of the data and found out that for any particular person with some variance, a marriage between first cousins about doubles the rate of unmasking, is in contrast to weddings between unrelated individuals. In spite of this, the British authorities came to this conclusion that even though there is an increased risk, the majority of children born into cousin marriages are unhealthy. In addition, at least one medical professional stated that it was counterproductive to single out a culture and that such an approach risked alienating the Pakistani community. She went on to say that we know that the risk of Down syndrome increases with advanced maternal age, but we don't see public education films urge mothers to have children younger. According to cultural cartography, cousin marriage was typically earlier and is ordinary in some cultures nowadays. Stephen writes in the New York Times, before the Industrial Revolution in the United States, Canada and Europe, you might have ended up married to a fourth cousin. People didn't travel far to find a spouse, and the closer you were to home, the more likely it was you'd marry within your family. So what changed? It has long been accepted as that fact that geographically dispersed people in Europe and North America married more frequently outside of their families after the invention of mass railroad travel in the period between 1825 and 1875. This is the time period covered by the conventional wisdom. However, during this time period, there was an increase in the genetic relatedness of a large number of couples. Not until after the year 1875 did partners begin to distance themselves from one another less and frequently. This 50-year age gap could be interpreted as evidence that changes in social norms played a more significant role than geographic mobility in encouraging people to marry outside of their family tree. So, if it was accepted then, why can't it be accepted now? Yes, I agree it is wrong. But there's the fact that more than 70% of marriages in Pakistan are between first or second cousins. It is estimated that Iraq has a rate of 33%, and Afghanistan has a rate changing from 30 to 40%. The catch is that almost all of these countries do not have such amenities to travel far or cannot afford to travel far, and so many resort to what is closest to them, which coincidentally happens to be cousins. Had the massive railway systems not been created, perhaps cousin marriage would have still been a thing even in American societies. Middle Eastern society continues with these cultures, although research shows that this cousin marriage has been brought to a significant drop. According to BMS Women's Health, predominantly in Muslim countries of the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia, with 65%, Pakistan has one of the highest rates of cousin marriages globally, followed by India, 55%. Saudi Arabia 50%, Afghanistan 40%, Iran 30%, Egypt and Turkey 20%. While yes, there are countless studies that prove blood relationship marriages have a significant toll on not only children's health but women's health as well, one can't criticize a culture for what they have been doing all these generations since. I don't agree with such practices. However, looking back at history, humanity was built upon two people, Adam and Eve. Then one child must have married a kin, a sibling? In conclusion, cousin marriage is considered a hypocrisy in American culture due to its genetic toll and its survival rate, yet it has been practiced in their own history and is still being practiced in Middle Eastern cultures. Now, this is not an argument of whether it is correct to have cousin relationships. It is two cultures that have been living in two different states of affairs. America has been living in a country that has been in constant growth with free education throughout all states. So it is quite common that they have much more knowledge in such cases. But such countries that are continuing with this culture do not. There is research that proves cousin marriages being a risk factor and not being a risk factor at the same time. American had this culture in their history. However, railway systems and travel have caused Americans to grow apart from it for the better. However, such countries might not have had these systems. Most of these countries that continue with this culture are poor and uneducated. So while it is wrong for cousins to get married, one can't blame a culture for it, for they have their own point for continuing it. Thank you so much. This is Khadija Nawan.